Hi, folks. My name is Alyson. I'm a writer. I'm a digital marketer. I'm a small lady with a big laugh. I've been publishing content online for almost 20 years, so more than half my life. I live and breathe content marketing. I love what I do. Day to day, I'm the president and founder of Starling Social Inc., which is a digital marketing agency. And I'm also the CEO and co-founder of Hey Alpha, which is an event marketing tool that uses, a marketing automation tool that uses an event's information to generate complete social media marketing campaigns. So suffice it to say, I spend a ton of time thinking about how we communicate, applying strategy to how we communicate, and bringing what I'm learning and the things that I'm thinking about to help our clients see success. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Here's sort of a basic overview of what we'll talk about in this webinar. We're going to talk about the state of digital marketing. We're going to talk about your brand story, how to create strategy-based content around that story, some SEO basics. We're going to talk about your website and your blog. We're going to talk about video marketing, how to write newsletters that people actually want to read, some tools of the trade, and then assuming there's some time at the end, we'll do a Q&A session as well. So let's get to it. Before I jump into some of the more technical stuff, I want to familiarize you guys with a concept called the mere exposure effect. And as you can see on the screen, basically what this means is that the more you see of something, the more you tend to like it. So just seeing something kind of out in the world, it's around, the more you see it and interact with it, the more you tend to develop an affinity for it. My favorite example of this is the Benedict Cumberbatch graph. I'm not sure how many women are tuned into this webinar. You may or may not experience this effect where the longer you look at Benedict Cumberbatch, the more handsome he becomes. This is obviously a silly example, but anecdotally, I literally have had this happen and know several women who have gone from like, ew, who is this weird looking man to, wow, he's so talented and attractive. This is literally the mere exposure effect at play. So when we think about the content marketing that we're doing and when we're thinking about being present online, it's important to just be there. Like we have to, we're going to talk about strategy and a lot of the sort of more technical pieces of it, but being online, being present, making sure your customers can see your brand on a continual basis and apply so that they can sort of develop that mere exposure effect is a great way to help them develop that affinity with your brand. So let's talk about the state of digital marketing today. Right now, 74% of brands surveyed are posting less on social media, which is great because if you don't have a super active social media profile, now is a great time to enter the marketplace. But 1/4 of companies are actually planning to increase their marketing post-COVID. So that means that, yes, there is a market opportunity right now if you haven't really been super active online, but the competition will increase. And, kind of as John was saying, like there's been a lot of attention or a lot of registration for this webinar. So like you can see that people are obviously thinking about this more than they were before. We're going to talk about some of this other stuff. So I wanted to throw some stats at you. Blogging can be 3 times more effective for marketers. So blogging is really important. Content marketing, so the type of marketing I specialize in, gets 3 times more leads than paid advertising because content marketing is SEO valuable marketing. We're going to talk a bunch about SEO later, so I won't go into that a ton right now. And search traffic generated 65% of total e-commerce sessions. So search engine results matter. Where you show up on that results page is important. And we're going to talk about that. But first, we're going to start with some basics. And whenever I give a talk about digital marketing, I like to start here because these are some of the foundational pieces that help us do this effectively. So what is brand storytelling and why should you care? Brand storytelling is the story you tell about your business. It combines facts and emotions and creates a connection with your customers. Telling a story about your brand also helps you stand out from similar competing companies. It conveys your unique value proposition, which we'll talk about in a second. It creates that emotional connection I just talked about. And mostly, like more importantly, because of COVID, it's no longer just a nice to have in our marketing. Customers are looking for emotional connections with the brands that they support. So more now than ever before, it's important to create those memorable emotional connections with our customers through stories. And obviously we can see here, stories are super effective. Research shows that messages delivered as stories can be up to 22 times more memorable than just facts. So If you're trying to get your customer to remember your business or a product or a detail about something that you do, embedding it in a story is a significantly more effective way to help them remember that detail than just throwing a stat at them or running an ad one time. Stories are much, much more effective because they make us use our brains differently. As you can see here, some research that came out of Ohio State in the 2000s found that when we tell a narrative, we put ourselves as the protagonist. So your brand becomes the protagonist or the main character in a story. And emotionally, we develop an affinity to them. We see them more favorably. So telling stories about our brands makes us more memorable. It creates an emotional connection. It differentiates us, and it helps put us in a positive light. I mentioned UVP before, and I figure it's probably worth digging into a tiny bit here. So your UVP is a clear statement that describes what you do and unique elements about your business. So things like that could include your target market. So who are the people who care most about what you offer? And how can you create a connection to those people with your unique value proposition? Other things you can think about include your values. So what differentiates you from other similar companies? And what are some challenges or opportunities that make you different? So for example, with Starling Social, my agency, one of the pieces of our unique value proposition is that I'm a writer. I don't have a marketing degree. I didn't go to the Asper School of Business. I have a degree in rhetoric, writing, and communications, which immediately differentiates my agency from other similar competing agencies because of the experience that I have and the experience that my team brings to us. So thinking about those kinds of elements when building your UVP is really important when telling your brand story. So if you're still really not kind of sure where to start, here are some good questions to ask. Why did I start my company? Or why did our founders start the company? What are some adjectives that describe my business and what we do? What do I want to be remembered for? And what I mean when I say this is, in a hypothetical world where the company you run or the company you work for closes tomorrow, what are the feelings and what are the sentiments that you want your customers to remember about your brand if it didn't exist? And what are the things that you want them to remember from actual interactions with your brand? So maybe you want to motivate them to lead a healthier lifestyle, or you want to inspire them to pursue higher education or what have you. So thinking about these things can be really instrumental. This is also another great way to build your brand story, thinking about it literally as a story. As you can see, this is a template I literally just pulled from Google. We do similar timelines like this with our clients as well. And you literally go from the very first day the company started to present, and you write out milestones that have occurred throughout your company's history. So maybe you started working on the company in your closet, and things that you could denote would be like your first hire, when you moved into an office, maybe some awards that you've received, big accolades, projects that you're proud of, basically any important milestone that you can add to this story timeline and that you can sort of refer back to as content pillars when you think about how to tell your brand story. So now that we've kind of done some of this foundational work, let's talk about strategy and how to apply it to our content. So this is a buyer's journey. There are a lot of different types of funnels in marketing. This is one of them. Basically, what this shows you is the process that a customer takes from when they start learning about your brand to when they decide to purchase. So at the top of the funnel, you can see that this is the awareness stage. Maybe they're looking for answers to their problems. Maybe they're searching for solutions. They're not really sure how to solve it yet. At this point, the marketing content that we want to focus on should be focused on problems and pain points and how you solve them. So your blog, social media, and advertisements are all really great content types for this stage of their journey. The next stage is the interest stage. So we want to focus on solutions here and educate. Now, at this stage, they sort of move further down. They're aware of us. Maybe they're interested in what we have to offer, and we want to reinforce that interest, right? This is where we educate people and help them feel empowered. Empowering our customers and making them feel good helps them feel good about buying from us. So here we can use things like events, webinars, white papers, reviews, and checklists can be very effective here as well at this particular stage. The next stage is the decision stage. So now they're maybe deciding between you and maybe one or two other vendors or options. And here we want to show what it's like to work with us. So things like demos, testimonials, case studies, and trial pricing are all great to use at this stage. And then the final stage is the action stage. And at this point, we want to validate their decision to buy from us. So maybe they've signed up for a free trial, maybe they've signed up through our website or something. And now we want to make them feel good about having made that decision. So we can use things like webinars, user guides, and live training to sort of back up and validate that decision. And we want to do our research. So what I mean by doing research isn't like do research one time. I mean continually do research on an ongoing basis to identify popular content topics that you can use for your blog, to speak to in your social media, and other areas. You can also, or you should also rather, be doing consistent keyword research to find out what kinds of new topics are trending in your industry. And this is important, and the language your customers are using to talk about them. Mirroring your customers' language back at them is a very effective marketing tactic. And there are tools that can help you with this, like SEMrush, Answer the Public, and maybe kind of obviously the Google Keyword Planner. At this stage, we also want to be developing buyer personas. Now, there's a lot of different language that kind of describes the same thing. I've heard them called attendee personas, customer personas, buyer personas. There's a lot of different language. But suffice it to say that this is a semi-fictional version of a real person who buys from you. So basically what we do is we use these to determine who they are, what their problems are, and how we can create marketing copy that speaks to those problems. So ask yourself things like, who are my ideal customers? What are their problems and how does my business solve them? As well as any demographics that they may have in common. So things like age, gender, profession, education, what their buying needs are. You can get as broad or as granular as you'd like. I recommend building really granular buyer personas because the more details that you can identify at this stage, the more targeted and strategic you can be with the marketing that you produce afterwards. So what do buyer personas tell us? Why should we put in this effort? Like I said, they inform our digital marketing strategy, and they tell us things like the specific problems that they have and how our product and service solves it. It tells us which social networks they're using and where they consume their news. This is really important if you are advertising, or if your customers rather are among different demographics, because different demographics use different social networks, right? Like my parents are for sure on Facebook, but I don't think my mom knows what TikTok is. So understanding where they consume their media can help you be strategic in where you share your content online in order to get in front of those customers. It can also tell you things like purchasing behavior, like why they buy and when they buy, as well as bottlenecks and roadblocks that hinder a purchase and the topics and values that are important to them. So to give you an example, one of our clients works in mining and manufacturing. There are between 4 to 6 individuals involved with any purchase in their industry. So what we did for this client was we developed buyer personas for each person involved with this purchase that helped us identify things like, well, the mining manager, the thing he cares about the most is safety. So when we're creating marketing copy that speaks to mining managers and the people who are going to be interacting with the tools day to day, sort of in the field, we want to make sure that safety is our primary focus. But further up the chain, the project manager, the senior vice president of marketing, they care more about costs and the long-term ROI of the purchases that they're making. So we want to write marketing copy that speaks to them and those problems in addition to the content that we're producing that speaks to the mining manager. We're going to talk about SEO in the next section, but I wanted to mention it here as well because SEO isn't something that you do once and forget about. Continually updating your SEO strategy and making sure that you show up on that search engine results page is really, really, really important. As you can see here, basically once you drop below the 5th position on a search engine results page, people aren't really clicking through. A 5% and lower click-through rate isn't that great. So trying to make sure that you are organically, or not paying for it, ranking as high as possible is really important. So let's talk about how to do that. So the terms that I'm going to use here, you can see there's SEO, search engine optimization, and SERP, search engine results page. As you can tell, that is a giant mouthful. So SERP is the acronym that we use, and that's the acronym that I'm going to use moving forward. So there are a couple different types of search that we want to be thinking about when we're crafting our marketing copy. There's desktop versus mobile. I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but when you look something up on your desktop versus your mobile phone, the results you get are different. And that's because search engines prioritize on mobile, they prioritize websites that are mobile optimized. So if your website works great on a desktop, but doesn't work great on a mobile device, you're going to rank differently. And as you can see on the bottom of the slide, SEMrush found that 30% of pages that are present on the first page of a desktop search aren't even on the top 10 results in mobile. So when you are crafting your copy, when you're doing your SEO strategy, continually check to see where you're ranking, as well as how your page looks on mobile, because that really, really does affect your ranking. So a great place to start is doing an incognito search. If you've never used your incognito tab before, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a tab that you can open in your browser that forgets your browsing history. And the reason that we want to do our SEO research with an incognito browser is because it doesn't remember our past searches, because our past searches inform the content that shows up when we search now. Google and other search engines are smart. They remember what we want, and they craft our answers based on what we've searched previously. So, for example, if you use a regular browser and you punch in your company's, the name of your company, that it's probably going to show up on the top rank no matter what, because you visited that web page before. But if you do an incognito search for your company, that's actually how you rank, right? So it's important to use incognito search when doing all of this research. Once you've opened your incognito tab, type in some keywords that you want to rank for, or you think that your business might want to rank for, or a phrase that describes your business, and take note about the top 3 results. So which keywords are they using? Are they the same as what you searched, or are they different? What phrases are they using to describe their business? So how are they describing themselves on that SERP, on that search engine results page? And then are they using any calls to action? So are they including language like buy now, learn more, click here, things like that? It's also important to do ongoing customer and competitor research. So while we're still in our incognito browser, we want to take note of the keywords and phrases our competition are using, like we just said, as well as the keywords and phrasing that your potential customers are using to describe your competition. So that could be checking Google reviews, Facebook reviews, Yelp reviews, insert the review site or method that's applicable to your industry, and pay attention to how your customer, or to how those customers are describing your competition, and see if there's ways that you can mirror that language back in your marketing to appeal to them in the future. Another great way to do research, if you have existing social media profiles, is to do polls. So polls through Instagram stories and Twitter are great ways to do sentiment analysis and find out which phrases and sentiments the people who already follow you and interact with your company associate with your brand. Using the Google Keyword Planner. I mentioned this planner in a couple slides ago. This is a great tool if you haven't really done a lot of this before. It's great for newbies. It's obviously experienced people like myself also use it. And essentially what you do is you create a draft Google Ads campaign. So you go through all of the steps, basically up until putting in your credit card info to running an ads campaign. And what that does is it gives you insight into the keywords you think you want to rank for in that ad. So you can see here, there's a little estimated performance section, and you can actually research different keywords and key phrases using the keyword planner for free, instead of investing in a tool right off the bat. So this is a really great place to start. And I highly recommend it, again, especially if you haven't really done any of this work before. So there are a couple of different other types of search that we want to consider when we're optimizing for SEO. There is voice search, which is spoken voice commands, so like Google Home and Alexa. Visual search, so actual images, screenshots, things like that. And vertical search, which is a search engine for a specific industry or niche. So like Google Books or Realtor.ca for real estate, things like that. So optimizing for voice search. Again, this is for people speaking to their smart devices, so keep user intent in mind. This is especially important if you have a brick and mortar location. A lot of voice searches are specifically for things like when something's open, where their address is, and what their phone number, how to get in touch. So make sure that all of this stuff is really easy to find on your website. An easy way to do that is to embed it in your footer. For voice search, focus on long tail keywords. So the difference between a long tail keyword and a short tail is that short tail are shorter and long tail is longer. An example would be like SEO. So the term SEO is a short tail keyword, but beginner's guide to local SEO, again, SEO versus beginner's guide to local SEO, that's a long tail keyword. It's a much more specific search. And most people doing voice search are asking more specific queries. So instead of focusing on just SEO, focus on specific long tail keywords you think people might be searching for related to your brand. You also want to keep things conversational. Obviously, we talk to our smart devices like we talk to each other. So keep a conversational tone in mind when writing your copy. And whenever possible, answer questions in your headers and in your page titles, because a lot of what people are asking their smart devices, again, are questions. So if you can rank as an answer for a question, you can show up on the results of a voice search a lot more easily. So visual search, again, this is image-based. So at this point, we want to make sure that we don't neglect our image's meta descriptions. And the meta description is a description of what is, the HTML that's on a page. So you can see here, search engines display the meta description in search results. So when you do a search and that little description of the web page comes up, that's a meta description. So updating meta descriptions on the images on your website is a great way to rank for visual search. Another great way to do it is to advertise or have an active Pinterest profile. A lot of images from Pinterest get cross-referenced in visual searches. And you can submit your images to sitemaps. A sitemap is exactly what it sounds like. It's a map of your website that search engines like Google and Bing and whatever have you keep kind of as a reference. So when someone punches a search query in, Google has to take that query and compare it against all the websites and goes through every single page on your website every time a search query is entered. That takes time and can actually hurt your SEO rankings. Whereas if you upload a sitemap to Google, Google can just reference it right away. It's already there. It's a lot faster. And one of the things that if you read a lot about SEO, you'll learn is that being fast is important and really helps your ranking. So if you are submitting your sitemap to Google, adding any of the images or videos that you have on your website to that sitemap, along with descriptions of what they are, can really help you rank higher in visual search. And the final one we want to think about is vertical search. This is not for everybody, but for some. These are niche platforms, like I said. It's important to craft your content accordingly for each platform. Don't just copy paste something from your website. Create unique content. Again, these are niche platforms. These are specific types of customers with different needs across each platform. So we need to craft content that speaks to them. But we do need to be consistent. So if I look at your Amazon listing and your Twitter profile and your website, I should be able to get a sense that I'm interacting with the same company every time, no matter where I'm seeing it. So writing your web copy for SEO, again, keeping SEO in mind when you're writing your copy can be an easy way to just sort of organically boost that ranking, just because you're being strategic, right? So including SEO keywords in your headers and subheaders, like we talked about, including it in your page content. Your blog is a great way to rank for multiple SEO keywords, as well as updating your blog slug in the meta descriptions. Your meta descriptions we just talked about, the descriptions that show up on a search engine results page. And the blog slug, as you can see in the image down here, is that little bit of URL text that shows up when you add a page title. And you can actually change what you want the slug to be so that you can rank for different keywords in the URLs of each of the pages you create on your website. So speaking of your website and blog, let's dig into that a little bit. So writing website copy that converts. I'm just going to put this out there. Writing web copy is hard, and it's hard to do well. But here are some of the basic tenements to keep in mind when writing your web copy. So use short paragraphs and sentences. This is particularly important because, again, we want to rank for mobile optimization. We want to make sure that our websites are easy to read on mobile. So short paragraphs and sentences are really important here. Same with skipping unnecessary words. Additionally, try to avoid using industry jargon whenever you can. Essentially, think of your website, just assume that every single person that visits your website has no idea about your business, has no idea about your industry, and has no idea about what you do. So use plain, accessible language whenever possible. Use the present tense. So speaking about, we help companies, we do this, versus we have helped. Just that subtle rhetorical shift implies that you're still doing it versus you aren't anymore. Avoid repeating yourself. Again, keeping your text short and snappy is important, but if you've said something once on a page, you probably don't need to say it again. Address your visitors directly. So use the word you. And again, that's a rhetorical trick that creates a connection with the person reading your website. Instead of saying like, we help companies, we help blah, we help you. Our product helps you do blah. It creates that sense of connection, and the person reading it feels like you're speaking to them. And then shorten your text again, obviously. Continue to optimize for mobile whenever possible. So why have I been talking about blogging? Isn't blogging dead? Obviously, it's not dead. Like all the tactics before it, blogging hasn't died. It's just different now. The blogging marketplace is oversaturated. Lots of companies have blogs. Most companies have blogs. So instead of saying, well, why should I have one if everyone else has one? The approach that we should take is, how can I be strategic about my blog? So why is this important though? Why, after almost 20 years of me doing it, is blogging still something that we need to pay attention to? Blogs are owned content. And what I mean by that is it's content that lives on the website you host. So if you think about this as an example, let's say you spend years building up your company profile on LinkedIn, you publish articles on LinkedIn, you've got all these connections on LinkedIn, you've got tons of content there. And then LinkedIn goes away. Maybe someone buys LinkedIn and shuts it down. Maybe people stop using LinkedIn. But for whatever the reason, LinkedIn's content goes away, and all of the work that you put into LinkedIn will also disappear. So publishing your blog on your own website means that it is owned by you. It will be there in perpetuity until you stop hosting your website. So very important. Blogs are also SEO gold, as I said before. You can target different keywords and different buyer persona types with different blog posts. Blogs are also where you share your knowledge and expertise, and they're where your customers can get to know more about you. So for example, with Starling Social, my agency, we regularly publish blog topics like, how to run a Facebook campaign or how to think strategically about your content. And by publishing this knowledge and sharing it, potential customers can visit our blog, see our thought process, and understand, okay, these guys actually know what they're doing. And anecdotally, most of the clients who get referred to me have said, I've read your blog, I checked out some of your posts, they're really great, you guys really know what you're doing. So that the thought leadership that's available through blogging consistently is really, really, really important. And for those of us who may not be social media marketers full time, and are maybe thinking about our marketing in relation or tangentially with other things, blogs are really easy social media shareable. So having a backlog of blog content that you can draw from when you're a little low on like fresh stuff can be a great way to continue to drive traffic to your website without continually having to pump out new stuff. So what kind of blog posts should you be writing? Here are some of the most popular blog types. You can see some examples here. There's a how-to post, the what is post, the infographic post. But the one I want to draw your attention to is in the middle. It's the pillar page post. And what a pillar page post is it's different than a regular blog post in that it's much, much longer. These posts are between 3,000 to 5,000 words, and they act kind of as like a big piece of reference documentation or like an encyclopedia about a specific topic. And what this post does is that it will link to other tangential articles that are related to that topic from within the pillar page post. So you can see the post is called The Ultimate Guide to Facebook Marketing. Well, I would want to make sure that I'm embedding all of these other 5 posts that are all related to Facebook marketing somewhere within this pillar post. This pillar post is great. We call it evergreen content. Evergreen content is content that isn't tied to a specific date or news item, so it can be used kind of in perpetuity, and is a great way, like I said, to link to other pieces of content from within your own website in a really natural sounding way that doesn't feel pushy to the people reading it. So planning your posts. If you aren't a writer like me, writing can be really intimidating. And like, I know for sure that I've sat down and looked at the blank page and thought like, what the hell am I going to put here? So an easy way to avoid that roadblock is to plan your post in advance. This bulleted list that you see here is literally the process we follow in my agency. We have an intro, we decide what the header is going to be, we decide in advance what our talking points are going to be. These could be paragraphs, these could be subheaders under that header. It's really up to you. But planning this out in advance is a really great way to make sure that we're hitting all the talking points we want, that we're integrating all of the SEO keywords that we're thinking of. And if there are multiple stakeholders involved in developing, editing, or approving the piece before it gets developed, this is a really great way to make sure that you are on track with writing the right thing before you actually start developing it. So how to plan and write useful blog posts. The first thing is know your audience. So use the research that we did earlier to identify the content topics that different buyer personas want to read, and then use your blog content to answer those questions and educate them. Again, educating your customers, helping them feel empowered, helps them feel good about your brand because, again, you're making them feel good about themselves, right? Again, use headers and small paragraphs for readability. Bullet points work awesome here. If you can integrate bullet points or a bulleted list into your blog content, that's a great way to break it up and, like I said, improve readability. Writing catchy headlines. So using keywords, numbered lists, and exciting language. This is important because obviously your headline is the first opportunity that someone reading your content is going to have to interact with it. So we need to be strategic in making sure that we're writing headlines that actually grab people's attention and that they want to read. And then end with a call to action. So every blog post you write should end with an action you'd like the reader to take, whether that's subscribing to your newsletter, contacting you to find out about a product, giving you a follow on social media. It really, it's really up to you, but ending with something you'd like them to do is a great way to wrap up that post and give a sense of finality to your content, as well as, again, giving them an opportunity to continue to continue to engage with your brand just beyond the post itself. So we want to make sure you know how and where to publish in advance, take some of the guesswork out of this process. Using the research we did earlier, again, see why I start with these sort of foundational principles, because this really does guide what we do later on. We use the research to decide which social media profiles we want to publish this on, the best time of day and day of week to publish. Now, this will really depend on your company. What I recommend doing is going into your analytics on a per platform basis and looking at when your content performs best. So are there specific days of the week, times of day that might be best? Different industries and different audiences all behave differently. So it's good to look at your analytics. And planning out which hashtags to include with your promotional posts. I'm not talking about hashtags in this webinar because it's a giant topic. But the research you did earlier on keywords and key phrases and competitor research should really give you some insight into the specific hashtags that you want to include and the keywords you want to speak to in those hashtags. The state of video marketing in 2020. So as it stands, over 50% of consumers want to see more video. People love video content. Video is great for standing out from your competition. It's great to create those stories, those memorable experiences with our customers. And if you look at the bottom of this bulleted list, the point that I want to draw your attention to is it says 72% of people would rather use video to learn about a product or service. So if your business educates your customers in any capacity, video is the best way to do this. I was actually on some software that we were using. I was on their website the other day, and they have a really robust FAQ page. And every FAQ bullet point has a bulleted list of steps as well as a tutorial video. So I could choose either to follow the steps or I could watch the video or do both. That was a really great experience for me as a user. And so if you can replicate that kind of experience for the people visiting your website using video, I highly, highly recommend it, because obviously that's what people want to use. And anecdotally, I had a great time. And I'm sure a lot of people on this webinar have probably had similar experiences as well. So again, more proof that video is memorable. You can see by this chart from HubSpot, which they did last year, that branded video and photo content significantly outperforms written content and audio content. So just something to keep in mind when you're thinking about, where to focus some of that marketing attention. How to create videos people love. We're actually, how to create videos people love. Sorry, lost my train of thought there. There's a lot of different things that you can do with video. Honestly, there's no one right way to do it, but here are some ideas kind of to get you started. So introduce yourself and your company. Who works there? Who are the people on your team? What's your office like? That kind of thing. Sharing details about what your products and services do. So reviews, comparisons, detail features, things like that. Sharing customer testimonials. So if you can get a video testimonial from your customers, that is a significantly more impactful piece of marketing than just a written testimonial. I don't have the stat on hand. Oh, I wish I did. But there's a stat out there somewhere that speaks to the efficacy of video testimonials and how much they convert compared to just written testimonials. So if you can get your customers to send you little videos, that is always, always, always ideal, because then you can reshare them. And that's a real human being endorsing you, not just some written text on a page or an Instagram post. Videos are a great way to educate your audience, like I just talked about with that FAQ page. And they're also great ways, like I said, to go behind the scenes. So, if you have a new product or service coming out, you can hype that a little bit in your video. You can introduce your office dog. If you're doing, once COVID lifts, maybe you're doing a team building exercise, you can share that on video. Like I said, it's really your options are really endless, and the sky is really, really the limit. And what you can do really depends on your business, ultimately. So live video is massive. I'm sure a lot of you have seen people going live on Instagram and Facebook. So let's speak to that a little bit. How to host live videos like a professional. The first thing, friends, is be prepared. Write out a script. Jot down any Q&A questions that you're looking to answer or you're planning to answer, and have them on hand and practice before your live broadcast. I know a lot of people feel like, oh, it's a live broadcast, I don't have to, but honestly, speaking to a camera and getting no feedback is very weird. So make sure that you rehearse at least a little bit so you sound natural. Promote in advance. If you're hosting a live video, you want to make sure you have as many eyeballs on that video while it's running as possible. So use your newsletter and your social media profiles, and maybe get your employees or friends or whoever to promote the live broadcast in advance so people know when to tune in. You can also use them to build hype, like I said. Live videos are great ways to tease an upcoming product or unveil something new that you're doing. Another great tip for live videos, especially getting people to tune into them, is to share coupon codes. So offering a limited time only promotion or a discount code or something like that to the people who tune into your live video is a great way to get interested parties to show up. Just make sure you share the coupon code at the middle or end of your video, not within the first 5 minutes. And encourage participation. So encourage viewers in your live stream to comment and talk to you as you're speaking to them, and to repeatedly heart or engage with your video in other ways that show community participation, and not just that you're sort of talking at a bunch of people, kind of like I'm doing right now. So newsletters. So why invest in email? A lot of companies I talk to still don't have an email strategy, and here is why now is the time. This is crazy. I actually just found this stat out a couple weeks ago. Email in 2020 has an ROI, or a return on investment, of 42 to 1. That's insane. Guys, that's nuts. For comparison, in 2018, and also the last time I made this slide, the average return on email was $38 for every $1 invested. So it's a crazy, crazy, crazy return on investment. And why? Because email engagement is going up. As you can see here in the next point, it's gone up 21%. And that's because people casually check their email on their phone multiple times a day. So if you send them an email, they're more likely to click on it, to scroll through it, and kind of engage with it a little bit more than they were even a couple of years ago. So our browsing habits have changed, our technology, our use of tech has changed. So it's important to keep up with these trends. Consumers spend 2.5 hours a day. So crazy amounts of time checking their email. And that's just the average consumer. That's not a business person like me, where I literally am glued to my inbox every minute of every day, right? As you can see here, the average time spent has increased 17% year over year. That's nuts. We are spending so much time in our inboxes, you guys. And sort of at the end here, you can see that if your business can implement automated follow-up emails, you can actually use your email not just to keep in touch with your customers through newsletters, but you can also use them to increase sales. So as you can see here, 3 follow-up abandoned cart emails. So those little emails, you know, if you put something in your cart at Amazon and then you close your window and you go away, and it'll send you like a, hey, you've still got this. Hey, you haven't checked out yet. Hey, do you still want this purchase? 3 of those is almost 70% more likely, or sorry, will increase purchases by up to 70% than just 1 email. So investing in email, being strategic about the emails that we send can dramatically increase the return on investment we see in our digital marketing efforts. So newsletter copy 101. I'm actually going to go through all of these on their own individual slides, but suffice it to say, these are sort of the basic tenements you want to keep in mind. The first of which is the KISS methodology. So KISS stands for keep it simple and strong, depending on who you ask. It could also stand for keep it simple, stupid. Basically what this means is keep your newsletters short, 200 to 250 words maximum. I mean this. The shorter your emails, the higher the conversion. People don't want to read walls of text, especially in their inbox. So the shorter and more concise you can make your emails, the better. Using positive and personal language, again, using you, using the present tense. Using easy to understand language and phrasing. Again, do not use any buzzwords here. And make your ask apparent in your text. And what I mean by that is if you are going to email somebody, if you're going to clutter up someone's inbox with your email, then you need to have a reason for it. Your customer wants to feel like you have a reason for getting in touch with them, not that you're just showing up and asking them to buy, right? Make the ask apparent. Make it clear what you want them to do. An easy way to do this is to make your emails scannable. I have used this template literally for years. I include it in most of my talks. Please feel free to rip this off. And look at how simple this email is. Hello, so-and-so. Here are 2 to 3 sentences about the topic of the email. I might work in a link to a blog post, a product, or a resource here potentially. I'm going to have a couple of bulleted lists, listed out talking points, and I'll probably close with a statement related to the action I want them to take, followed by a button with a call to action related to the action I want them to take. It's literally this simple, literally this easy. This is literally what you should be, this is the template you should be using to write your emails if you want to increase conversions and get people to actually take those actions you want them to take. Short, simple, sweet. Keep it simple, stupid. I forgot what the other acronym said. When you're sending your emails, make sure that you're using customer-centric language. Again, your newsletter exists to show your customer how your business is solving their problems. So keep that in mind when creating copy for your newsletters. Always be focused on the problem they have and the solution that you offer. How to write subject lines that evoke emotion. So kind of like blog headlines, our email subject lines are the first interaction that someone's going to have with our email, right? So we want to make sure that we are writing subject lines that make them feel a certain way about that email that causes them to open it up. So some of the feelings you might want to think about are happiness, curiosity, look inside, or like urgency. So phrases like, limited time, time's running out, act now, things like that. Excitement is another great emotion to try and get people to feel. And I recommend experimenting with emojis in your subject lines. Now, you can see there's a little caveat here. Just use 1 emoji. Don't go crazy. A lot of emojis feel spammy and unprofessional. And when you're experimenting with using emojis in your subject lines, make sure that you don't use an emoji in place of a word. And the reason for that is because not everyone's email client is going to be able to show that emoji in their subject line. So parts of your messaging that we just worked on, to get them feeling excited or curious or whatever, that messaging might get lost if we try and replace words with emojis and that emoji, isn't supported by that email client. So use them at the start or at the end of your message, but not in the middle if you can help it. And again, only use 1. We can also use our pre-headers as a call to action. So our pre-header is the section below or that follows your subject line. So you can see here in this example, it says how to get your first 1,000 subscribers. Well, if I have 1,000 subscribers, I don't need to open that email. I don't care, right? But the pre-header says, well, if you've got more than 1,000, open anyway. So we can use the text in our pre-headers to support the statements that we're making or the feelings we're trying to evoke in our subject line to further entice people to click and open our email. And finally, tools of the trade. So these are some of the tools that I use every single day, or that our clients are using every single day, that we use to achieve the results that we get. So the first one of these is Grammarly. It's a proofreading and editing tool. I cannot recommend Grammarly enough. I live and die by this tool. Tangentially, another way to test your copy and make sure that it sounds okay and that it's shortened and that it's concise is to read what you've written out loud. We read things differently in our heads, and when we say it aloud, the verbosity, like, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I'm a really long-winded person, even when I write. So reading the content that I write out loud helps me find ways to shorten and further edit down that text. Buffer is the social media scheduling tool that we use at Starling Social. I haven't talked about social media automation just because it's a really big topic, but the TLDR of it is having a social media scheduling tool and blocking out time to do your marketing at once rather than trying to just get a post out every day is how we be strategic. It's extremely difficult to be strategic when we feel pressured and when we're trying to do work at the last minute. So using a tool like this can really amplify the return on investment of your efforts. I talked about headlines earlier and how to write good headlines. We use a tool called the CoSchedule Headline Analyzer. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's a tool that you can use where you punch in, you copy and paste your subject line into the headline analyzer, and it gives you a grade, as well as suggestions for how to improve your headline. Really, really useful. Sendinblue is the email marketing tool that we use. I really like it, but if you are new to this, MailChimp is also a really great place to start. The Google Keyword Planner, like I said, doing SEO research, it's free. So I recommend starting here if you aren't already using a tool or don't have an SEO process in place. And finally, Vidyard. Vidyard is a really cool video creation tool. A lot of our clients use it and really love it. And what I love about it is that it gives you analytics on your video. So we can actually learn how people are interacting with our content, with our video content, in order to make smarter video marketing decisions about what we decide to share or create later. And that's it, folks. That's my whole webinar.